Hello, everybody. We're going to get started here. So, hello, folks. Those in the back, see if you can find some seats. There's a few seats right in the front. If you can't find any seats, there are like lovely, comfortable couches at the back. So we want you to be comfortable. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming to the February TPMA event. My name is Andrew Williams. I'm the director of product of a company called Vertical City. I'm one of the TPMA board members. So yeah, it's February. I'm sure everyone's product roadmaps are in flawless condition. And it's really exciting to have everyone back together. We had a little bit of a break in January with just a digital event, but in person is my personal favorite. Just to get started. And so we're going to start with some technical difficulties. But essentially what that was going to say is a land acknowledgement, which I'm not going to try and remember. But please be conscious of the fact that we live on grounds that has been home to many different people over the years. And one of the best things about Toronto is the fact that it is a meeting place for many people. There it is. So yeah, some of those peoples include the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I'm going to pass the microphone over to Ben, who's speaking on behalf of our wonderful venue sponsor, Intelaware. So please give a round of applause for Ben. Thank you.
I'm Ben Hall. I'm the lead technical director here at Intelaware, and I wanted to extend a warm welcome to TPMA for our space. So Intelaware has been around for over 30 years. Our roots are in custom software development and software engineering, but we have expanded our offerings into business and technology advisory, user experience design and implementation, in addition to software engineering and cloud engineering and DevSecOps. We've worked with the largest financial institutions in Canada and the US. We also love working with startups and helping them to bring their visions into reality. And which reminds me then that we have an event on April 11th, which you're all welcome to join. It is a panel discussion called Startup versus Startup. We're going to have a panel that's going to share their stories, lessons learned, take questions from the audience about their experience bringing products vision into reality. So yeah, if you are curious, please come. If you have a funded idea, please come, particularly if you have a funded idea. Yeah, so that's April 11th. And enjoy the evening. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ben. And thank you very much to Teleware. It's a wonderful place to host an event. The staff is amazing. And so, yeah, thank you so much again. We have a few other sponsors we want to thank, Martin Bassett Associates and Leicester. They are part of two companies that really help the TPMA do what we do. If you are interested in sponsoring, send us a message to info@tpma.ca. Lastly, so our volunteers, TPMA is a completely volunteer-run organization. There is literally probably 50 to 60 people in the background working on all different sides of things, the events, the mentorship program, a lot of interesting things around content and bursaries and a whole bunch of really exciting stuff that we've got coming up. So just a really quick round of applause for all the volunteers and all the people that Okay, let's get on to tonight. Building and scaling a product operations practice. I'm going to, so first thing, we're going to be doing questions via Slido. So if you've never used Slido before, it's an online platform. Just go to slido.com and type in that number right there, or use your phone to scan that QR code. And you can ask questions, you can vote questions that you like. I don't know if you can downvote questions you don't like, but maybe you can do that too. So yeah, we'll be taking lots of audience questions throughout the course of the event. Our speakers. So I'm going to introduce our moderator, Stacey Feero. She is a wonderful product leader who's most recently worked as a product leader at Versett. She's also been a product leader at Loblaw Digital, TWG, and Post Media. She's also a really amazing community builder. She's she's the founder of Women in Product, and she's also one of the TPMA board members. So round of applause for Stacey.
And I'm going to intro our panelists. So I just get to be the fun person who asks questions tonight about product ops. As context, Andrew planned this event this year as part of our programming, and I was like, ooh, I love product ops. I think I'm one of the most systems thinkers, product person out there, and I don't do product ops, but I know two lovely people who do. And first up, we're going to have the lovely and wonderful Wong come up and join us. May has built product ops at organizations. She's currently a product ops consultant and runs the Product TO meetup. If you don't go to that, please join your community events in product.
Yeah, sure.
Lovely. Yeah. I'm missing this month, but I'm there for next month in March. And the next person, Hugh Theodore, is the Senior Director of Product Ops at Ceridian. Hugh, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it Ceridian or is it Dayforce now?
It's Dayforce now.
It is Dayforce now, so sorry, dated. I apologize. Hugh I met in the community many moons ago, and I'm surprised we have never worked together because our paths are fairly similar in the sense that we've both done product in consulting environments as well as at traditional organizations. And I hope you don't take offense when I say Ceridian is a traditional organization.
We're working on
it. And that's the good work that they're doing tonight. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm going to stare at my phone just so everyone knows because all the questions are on there. So there's 4 themes to tonight's discussion topics. We're going to talk about defining product ops. For those of us in the room just curious, like, what is this thing? My company doesn't have it. What cool companies do? We're going to talk about the value and the insights that product ops teams provide product teams to help them build better products. We're going to talk about starting a product ops function at your company, and then how do you scale it and let it grow. So very meaty topics for us to cover in about an hour's time. But let us stop. So I started to plan for tonight's session by going to ChatGPT, and I said, can you please explain product operations to me as if I'm a 5-year-old child? I'm going to read to you both the definition it spit back out at me. Product operations is like making sure all the toys in your toy box work really well and everyone knows how to play with them. It's about making sure everything runs smoothly so you can have lots of fun. What do you think of that definition?
Do you want to take this?
Kick us off, Hugh.
Okay, so yeah, I agree with that. I think that I asked ChatGPT the same thing, and to like work through it. I view it as like product ops as the visibility, measurability, and scalability or optimization of product management activities, but not just the activities, the connections between those activities, so the handoffs throughout. And so like those 3 lenses across those 2 like key functions. And I think of it not as a function, but a connection between functions primarily.
The connective glue so we can play with our toys well.
Yeah.
May, what do you think?
I think of it as kind of the space in between. So not just the connective pieces between the toys, but like the toy box itself and how it's designed. So the way I like to explain it to product people is, okay, raise your hand if you've gone through your workday in the last time you've spent a workday, so it might be today, without running into any challenges where you're like, what am I supposed to do here? You know exactly what you do today. Okay, how about like, there's an hour of your day where you know, I know exactly what I need to do here.
Yeah, I've got an hour at times. But so as context for everyone who's watching on Zoom, I'd say that was like 20%. That said, yes, I understand about an hour of my day.
Yes. So product ops is all the time that you spend thinking about how am I supposed to do my job. That's not the actual product management part of your job. It is a part of your job that doesn't get recognized, but it is operationally important and it is where you get stuck. So for me, product ops is investing in figuring out across your entire product discipline, not just the product manager, but the product discipline, how do you do it better?
I love that because I think as a product leader, I've spent so many times teaching my PMs, like, figure out how to do it once, don't reinvent the wheel, keep going, keep moving, we need to ship. So I think I heard an answer to this question implicitly in what you said, May, but like, why shouldn't we live without product ops as product managers and as members of product teams?
I mean, you could.
We
Aren't
could,
you
but
all
clearly
doing
we're not happy, right? Like,
it's more just like if you have 1 or 2 PMs, you can figure it out. If you have a team of 5 PMs, how much time are you each one of your PMs spending trying to figure it out, right? At some point in time, there is the economics of figuring it out at scale.
Yes.
So I think that's where it really comes in, at least in my mind, when it comes to setting it up.
right. So yeah, Hugh, jump in.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So like further to what you were saying about how often do we know exactly what we're supposed to be doing, maybe framing it as how often can we measure the effectiveness of what we're doing? And that's how I think about it.
Yeah. So how do you measure the effectiveness of what you're doing? Yes.
Okay, so the activities that you do on a day-to-day basis, sometimes we don't even think about what we're doing. So how much time you spend with clients, how much time you spend grooming your backlog, whatever the activity may be. And we don't think about how much time we're doing that. And maybe it's not specifically important, the activity itself, but the aggregate of those activities and how effective or how measurable each of those pieces are and how they map to the specific outcomes either from like a product strategy, portfolio, or corporate strategy perspective. I think that's where product operations is trying to be that connective tissue.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a follow-up question about the definition of product ops. So I'm sure many folks here are familiar with Melissa Perry. Melissa Perry, along with the co-author, Lee Stills, thank you. I had to look down for that. Published a book last year on product operations. And so they define the 3 pillars of product operations as data and insights, customer and market insights, and process and governance. Now my question to you both, Hugh, why don't you go first on this one, is like, do you, in your function that you lead in product operations on your team, you're a senior director of a team of product ops folks, do you lean into all those 3 pillars, or do you lean into like 1 or 2 more than the others?
So we do, for sure. The framework that we use is similar but adjusted. And so PPTG, people, process, technology, and governance, focusing on like people, process, technology, and ideally you're building governance into everything that you're working on there. But the idea being that from a product ops perspective, and so we're insights and analytics at Dayforce, and so a lot of that effort focuses on like quantitative tools to provide like quantitative insights. But a tool is just a tool, and without meeting the people where they are or embedding it in the process or the outcomes for those teams, it's not going to take off. And so thinking of it as a 3-legged stool, and making sure that all sides of it are shored up so that it's stable.
Okay, so follow-up question. Because you said something I liked, which was like, you help us with data and insights. So I know in my past, I've had myself been in this position, product managers from my team in this position where we're like, I just need to pull this number to tell me how to make this decision. And I can't pull it myself. Do you help folks do that so they can make more, I should say, better decisions?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
That's why we need product ops.
I've got half of our team here as well, and so they know that pain. I say pain, but like it's what we're here to do.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about scalability, we'll talk about why we try not to do that as often as we're asked to. But yes, absolutely we do.
Okay.
I don't.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, May, tell me what you do. What's your vibe?
So for me, I like to give people access, right? And it's not just product managers.
So you're teaching them how to fish.
First, you have to like build the road to the pond.
Okay, let's talk
Half the
about it.
people know how to fish, and then you build the road, you give them access, you like throw away all the roadblocks, and then you say, okay, here's the road. And then people actually, like from my experience, the PMs who know how to fish, go and teach everyone else how to fish. It's fantastic. So it's really about like giving people access to what they need. So it's not even just data, it's all the things you need to make good product decisions. You've got data, you've got access to customers, you've got access to support and success feedback, all of those things, and even like internal stakeholders who are subject matter experts who can give you that feedback. All of that access can't be limited. So it's really thinking about the context that you need to do your work as a product manager.
To the best of our ability, right? Like
Yeah, and then you level them up, right? It's like collectively level up. So it's about what is the product management discipline as it exists in this organization within the context of like what you're struggling with. So for me, like I don't actually agree with the 3 pillars.
Okay.
Specifically in the sense that every single organization has to be implemented in the same way. And if you read the book, they'll tell you not to do that. But it's more just like, what does your organization need? And here are the things that it shows up as. So there are some organizations where the UX team will have that insights umbrella. There are some organizations where the technology team will have that data umbrella. But it's about bridging product and data and bridging everyone else and access to that data in order for us to do better.
Yeah, I think like you hit on a key point that's a pain point for product people. It's we're making decisions all the time. I'm gonna make an assumption with everyone in the room. Tell me you're not making 25 decisions every day, and then when you get home, you're like, fuck, I don't wanna decide what's for dinner. You delegate that to someone else, or you delegate it to the Greeks. But we make decisions imperfectly, with imperfect information. And often with information that is accessible, it just takes so many steps to access it that I need to make my decision faster than I can access it. And the way I think about product ops is you pave the road to the pond that I need to be drinking from. If that's the weird way to connect to your analogy.
You use whatever analogy works for you.
want.
Go and convince your product leader to do that.
I self-admittedly, I used to work at Lala Digital, and I did a pitch deck being like, we need product ops. We've got one team that kind of functions in it. We need more of it. I failed. I didn't win. But I'm a big believer in like removing the glue, because I actually think the majority, and I'm really curious, please come talk to me after if you think this is true, that 75% of our day is often spent in that mud, rather than doing our real jobs.
So I'm gonna.
Jump in.
There was a little bit of time, I think last year, where I walked around TPMA and I asked people,
Yeah.
what percentage of time do you gut feel spend doing product management? And the spike was around 25%.
Yes, I knew it. I have that kind of number in my head.
There's a smaller spike around 50%, and the 50% people are the happiest.
That's the goal, baby. 50% doing your job. Okay, so we've defined what product ops is to each of you in your own philosophies and within your organizations. Tell me, imagine I'm a product manager, I'm leading a team. How do I leverage a product operations manager to work with me? How do I build that partnership?
Sure. I think like ideally the product operations team, if they've got the scale, would have reached out to you. That's my hope, because what we do needs to be scalable. And when we talk about like how we're organized or how we're structured, we can dig into that a little bit more. I think the best thing to come to a product ops team with is like a clear business challenge, a clear business problem, and maybe an inkling of how that like levers up to like your corporate strategy or your product portfolio strategy. I think with those two pieces, developing ideal outcomes, what the best possible outcome could look like, and then trying to map out jobs to be done based on that delta, is where your product operations team or your insights and analytics team is going to step in and help you. And they're going to help you with qualitative, quantitative data, and then ideally best practice evangelism. But just like going back to what we were talking before about like it feels like one directional, the way that we're talking about product ops to product management.
Yeah.
It's still kind of a nascent function, right?
Totally.
And so it's not to say that like it's one way from product ops to product management. Like also engage with your product operations team if they exist, and let them know what you need to be successful so that they can be more successful, because it's reciprocal.
Yeah, it's a very nascent field. Before we started our discussion tonight, I was saying to someone in the back, 2 years ago, I saw every SaaS product leader going like, here's my proposal, please invest in product ops. My PMs need it, and our teams need it to be more functional. And I feel like that's kind of quieted down. So I'm really glad tonight we're evangelizing some of the good work that you guys do. But I think like, we're talking, in our first 15 minutes defining it. It's still kind of theoretical. Like if I had a product operations manager helping me out on my team, are they embedded in my team? Do they come to my rituals? Like, how do they actually support the product team in like really tactical terms? Do they go away and say, I have this question, go help me find the answer?
So there's two types of product ops. There's starting it out where everything is really messy, and then there's product ops at scale. So what Hugh talks about is a little bit more at scale, but I'm sure we face the same problems.
There are still messes for sure.
But like I usually go in where there were no product ops or product ops didn't really exist. So for me, it's more of a product leadership challenge.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, so it's because usually it's just me and maybe a team of PMs plus the product leader. It's really working through what are the strategic goals and where are things breaking. Because like, you have to go and show that value up front, otherwise you might not have a job. So it's more just like figuring out where are the big things that you can solve right now. And it's very much a prioritization challenge, right? So the way I look at product ops in terms of how I actually do it, I'm product managing the product management discipline and the context in which it exists.
That's fucking meta.
Yeah, totally. No, but legit, like I think like we view our function as like product management for product management. We build products that product managers consume.
Damn. Okay, if that's your one takeaway for the night, that's a soundbite. We're product management for product management.
And if it like builds optimism, like if you're a product manager or adjacent, like there's nothing stopping you.
Okay, so
Begin
let's build on that. Let's build on that. So I'm gonna jump into our next theme, which is like how you add value and how you help product teams support us to make better products, build bigger businesses, and be successful. So can you tell me a story where you helped a team make better decisions, build better products, serve their customers better, whatever scenario it is?
Okay, I'll go first. So one of my most recent journeys into product ops, I was brought on by a product leader. Okay, so for me, this is very much a partnership between myself and the product leader to build out a product management discipline, right? That's how I see it. That's how she saw it. That's how we partnered.
Okay.
So what it was at the time was she's fairly new at that company. It was quite the feature factory, everyone's favorite word. And what we wanted to do is we had a core set of products and we wanted to turn it into like a proper product practice, right?
What stage of the company was this?
This was a digital, so complex.
Okay.
There's no stage.
Okay.
Yeah. So we started off with people telling us what to do. And so we had to introduce strategies, that strategic alignment, how this interacts with like the development and design teams, plus the go-to-market teams, plus all of the other pieces that had to be there in order to do it. So for me, my role actually turned into operationalizing that strategy and operationalizing that alignment, so everyone really had a better sense of what was happening.
So was the purpose there and the value that you provided is like getting everyone rowing in the same direction, to use another analogy?
Yeah, because like there's a lot of strategic work. You know, in your day-to-day, you do a lot of strategic work and you do alignment within your team, and then you do alignment kind of up, down, and sideways, right? But what if you don't have to resell the larger portfolio strategy every time you did it, because it's
Everyone
expected
understands it?
that everyone understands it. So it's like making your jobs easier because the expectation now is everyone has access and has been taught what the higher level strategy is.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask a follow-up question. Spicy. Is that not the product leader's job?
It is, but when are you going to do it?
Interesting.
There's so many different flavors of product though, just like
Okay.
there's so many different flavors of product operations. I would like you could say that like XYZ, like whatever it is the product manager or product leader's job.
Yeah.
And they're so busy fighting fires that so to May's point, like when do you have time for that?
I understand it. I've lived it.
Yeah.
So no judgment, no
Can I
shade to
tell
that
an
person. you
analogy?
work for. Please do it.
Okay, so a product leader has 5 jobs. Okay, 5. The first job is people management.
Mhm.
The second job is product or portfolio strategy, whatever is under you.
Mhm.
The third one is stakeholder management. Again, up, down, and sideways, and there's a lot of that.
Yes.
Your fourth job is the higher level strategy. So that's either a company or organization or portfolio strategy, wherever you sit under to keep your team relevant. And your fifth job is how does my team work together? And out of all those 5 things, what is the first thing to fall off your plate? How does my team work together? And that's product ops. So I call it the permanent elephant in the room that you know if you got rid of it, it will be so much easier, but it's never a priority.
And I think a counter argument to that is 4 and 5 are shared responsibility amongst product engineering and design leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And whatever your executive or SLT looks like.
Yeah, and depends on like the size, structure, wherever you are in the organization.
Okay. So, Hugh, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to go back to the question we had a few minutes ago, which is like, can you tell us a story where you helped a product team succeed at building a better product?
Yeah. I think because we're decentralized and we work with a lot of different teams, I think that the best way that we've helped like multiple teams build better products, and to like highlight one of like the kind of key challenges of being an enablement team in product operations is that connecting the specific activities that you do to the specific measurable outcomes of how a product performs in market is very difficult. There's a lot of levels removed. So like you want to have an impact that is measurable to revenue of your product in market. Like if you master that, make it a product like right away.
Yeah, okay.
Art and aesthetic.
Yeah, exactly. So how we help product teams, how we have helped product teams is a lot of different ways. It's sort of standardizing or aggregating definitions, a shared language, how we measure things, our methodologies. And when you get to a certain scale of companies, Dayforce is a huge company with lots of partnerships, lots of softwares available. And so there's no shortage of what you can use, but specifically, how do you bring those together in a way that is reduces the time to insight is the way that we approach it. And that's not me, that's Mark, he's right over there, coined that term. Reducing the time to insight. And so that you can present a tool to someone with data in it, great, so what? You can layer in all that data on a Power BI, great, so what? But giving me like within 3 clicks, I can know what to add to my roadmap or how I can make my time more efficient. That's what we strive to do. And I think that's our vision or mission for helping product teams.
Preach. As someone who also led product at a traditional organization, yes, we need that so badly. Reduce that churn or that, that indecisiveness that can take over product teams around the decisions they're making.
Yeah, and if I can, like talking about traditional organizations, and I mentioned before, like we're working on it, but even if we were like a hyper-modern, like bleeding edge organization, we're still working on it.
Totally.
And the fact that like Dayforce has an insights and analytics team embedded within product strategy and product operations,
That's
like
awesome.
we're really working on it. You know what I mean? So yeah.
You're walking the walk and talking the talk.
I think so. And I see it every day, and I think our team sees it every day. So even if you're like a large enterprise with thousands of people across the globe, whether it's formal or informal, you can start up something that is adjacent to product operations that makes a meaningful impact.
That's really cool. Okay, so we've defined product ops. We've talked about the value you guys add at organizations. How do I start one? How do I start like tomorrow? Messaging my product leader or my leadership team and going like, yo, my mind is blown. I feel like we need this at our company. How do you start one?
It's an investment.
Tell me more.
It is. Because every day, every single one of us in this room, even the product ops people, do product ops, right? Like that. It's work that doesn't get recognized because it's not.
It ain't getting me promoted. I'll tell you that.
And it might get you fired for doing product ops because it's not product management. Your job is to do product management, not product ops. Even if it does make your job easier, it's still not enough, right? So it's important to recognize when your work is not actually going to be recognized as your work. And so if you want to do product ops, don't do it without buy-in.
So how do I generate that buy-in? So like, May, you told us a story earlier where you worked and partnered with a product leader to like build product ops at their organization. Now you had an advocate alongside you. I'm assuming based on how you told that story. But how did you get the buy-in amongst everyone else alongside that person? So like, I'm assuming sorry, was it the CEO?
No, well, kind of. It's it's not really like explicit buy-in for product ops. It's more
the problem you're solving.
Not even the problem that you're solving. It's the desire to change. So what product ops is massive systemic change across an organization. The reason why
But man, that sounds so scary.
it is scary. But the reason why it's really hard to do it as an individual contributor, product manager, and God knows I've tried early in my career, it's really hard because you don't have the power to do that change. You don't have that buy-in. You don't have the authority.
Are you saying me as an individual contributor PM, I shouldn't advocate for this if I think you really need it?
You could advocate.
My yellow head's going to be bleeding from.
You could advocate for it, but you need that mandate. It's the mandate to change. In order to actually get things done, you need that mandate.
So what kind of signal would you see from your leadership team for that kind of mandate? Like what kind of things would they be complaining about where you're like, we would need that kind of change?
I think it's more getting them to believe that there's a problem, right?
Okay.
It's like, it's a sales thing, right? You know, sales wants you to believe there's a problem, so you buy this tool. Well, like I want you to know that there's a problem, so you invest in product ops.
Okay.
It's not like, I think most product leaders recognize something is wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It's more like building that case to recognize that, you know, if we can get 10% more, better product decisions across the board and everyone being aligned, and we can actually accelerate our growth this much more. Or, you know, if we just got a funding round or we're getting acquired and everything's about to change, how we work won't scale. Like we need to invest in how we work together. So it's like that aspect of leadership and organizational design that often gets forgotten when we think too much about our craft. We need to take a step back and think about the organization.
So you just mentioned two use cases where that desire for change may occur. One is a funding round coming in, and then one might be an acquisition. Is that where you found the most wind in the sails for product ops to get started?
It's the easiest time to ask for money.
Yeah. So like there's a direct correlation between starting this and like having more money.
The only other time I've seen it really get pushed is if you're a single product company trying to branch out into a portfolio space.
Okay.
That's the only other time really. Like, so there's major change happening in the design of your organization, and you're using that as an excuse
because
to
it's an expansive moment.
Yeah.
So Hugh, what about you? Tell us about like the journey at Dayforce about like product ops. Like, I don't know if you were there for the institution of it or.
Well, I think it's existed in a couple different incarnations in pockets because again, it's such a large organization. But I think it started with senior product leadership, and like hats off to them, identifying a need. And so that's that demand, right? So that demand existed. And coming from a product management, like product readiness or like launch readiness perspective, they're like, there's an opportunity here. Can we fill this space? And so spending some time identifying what that problem space is. We know there's a need there, but let's identify the problem space. Let's map out what our current capabilities are from a product management perspective. So access to data, what kind of tools we're using, our ceremonies, our processes. And then comparing that against what an ideal state would look like. And maybe that's an ideal state of where you are now, or you're seeking a funding round and you want to identify what that ideal state looks like when you need to level up. And using that delta to identify the jobs to be done that can occupy that white space that is product ops. And to May's point earlier, it's an activity of prioritization, like ruthless prioritization in terms of like, you said it before, like low-hanging fruit. Demonstrate value as early and often as you can, but don't shy away from trying to solve like big problems in the background as well. So our journey was, and again, hats off to like Dayforce product leadership. They identified a need and they provided us the opportunity to build something out.
So I want to hear more horror stories. What was the biggest challenge you've experienced starting up product ops?
When you're here to change something because something is terribly wrong, something is terribly wrong across the entire organization too. So it's not just designing the product discipline at work, it's designing the product discipline to work while support is scaling by 20% and engineering scaling by 30% and design scaling by 40%. And like all of these changes mean whatever you design actually has to be really flexible, because anytime an organization changes, how you work changes as well, especially when it's like a question of size or scale. So when you're talking about designing, it's not about designing a process, because that process is going to break as soon as your organization changes. So it's really about literally getting two people to talk to each other. It sounds crazy, but it's really trying to find who is not talking to each other, getting them to talk to each other, and like how do you systemically create that alignment going forward so that you don't have to be the person to say like, hey, you need to talk to that person.
I don't think that sounds crazy. I'm sure all of us have done some of that brokering in our own careers. But Hugh, tell us, what's a horror story you've experienced?
Okay, so nothing horrific because because horrific's a strong language, right?
It is quite a hyperbolic word.
Yeah, it's
Exciting challenge. What's it?
exciting challenges. Okay, so I'll frame it in terms of here's what to look out for when you're on this journey. Some of the biggest challenges that we found or encountered in very real ways are like not having a shared story or narrative. If you don't share the same language, if you don't have the same definitions, the same methodologies, then just understanding like the metrics that go into a dashboard become virtually impossible when you can't align on what those definitions might be. And that's a big challenge. And it's reinforced, especially in a large organization, if there are like heavily reinforced silos. And like, look, there are problems that exist within any organization, and silos also can exist for a reason because the activities within those silos are hyper effective, right? And we all want to do our very best jobs, but product operations can help bridge that gap between those silos and start to break them down and create that shared language. I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, especially also whenever you try and automate anything, just be prepared to make people nervous. When you're automating things, people just tend to have that sort of knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, I think in my mind, the value of driving alignment is one of the biggest value adds. Like, give me quick access to making better decisions and help me drive alignment across different stakeholders. Damn, am I going to enjoy my job a hell of a lot more than I normally do as a product manager.
Like imagine you create a roadmap, right? And then how many times do people come back to you and say, where's the roadmap? If the expectation is now, this is the place where everything is stored, here are the links, you go here, and
here's where you go to talk about it and talk about the vision.
Yeah, here's where you go to. Here's the channel where you communicate. Here's the channel you look up information. Here's the channel where you talk about ideas and like really build on, feature requests.
Yeah.
Right? Like feature requests comes in and half the time we're expected to build it. But like there's no value in an idea. The value is the conversations behind that idea that inform you on what to actually build. Right?
Yeah.
Or who to talk to next.
Yeah.
I think the one thing we try and do is provide quantifiable value behind ideas through product ops. I think that's an interesting challenge you bring up is there isn't a lot of value in just an idea, but a lot of the work that we do focuses on adding that quantifiable, those metrics to those ideas. I think that's a really key value driver of the function overall.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of the questions I wanted to ask you both tonight is out of curiosity and my own experience talking to people in product ops. And it's, do you think you need to have done product management to be great at product ops? And is there fluidity for folks in their career to switch in between both functions?
I think it depends what flavor of product ops you're doing.
Okay.
So there's a flavor of product ops where you're doing data and insights, and you could be a data insights person. You do that your entire career, and that's great. You could be a person who's more like operationalizing go to market, and there is an aspect of product ops that's really deep into go to market. It's closer to product marketing, and it's kind of there is no clear boundaries half the time, especially in any organization. But yeah, like it's. I think if you are really working on improving the product management discipline, though, you need to know what product management is.
Okay.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's a prerequisite. I definitely agree that it depends. I'm surprised we haven't said that more tonight because it always depends. But I think that if you fundamentally agree that the only way to progress is through measurability, then I think you've got an aptitude for product operations or product management in general. Being able to measure how well the activity is, how effective the handoff between stages of the SDLC are. Yeah, you need to understand what an SDLC is for sure. But no, I think as long as you're like passionate about it and the business has a need for your specific skill set and what you can bring, and also not ignoring how important sales, a narrative around sales and selling your skill set and that function are going to be, because there are going to be people who, like to your point, it's number 5 on the list, how well people work together. So you need to make a compelling case for why it's important. And if it's not important now, when we seek funding, or a year from now, it will be incredibly important, and it will be very costly if we don't invest in this function now.
For those of you who aren't aware, SDLC, software development lifecycle, or product development lifecycle.
Thank you. Good catch. We do use a lot of acronyms. No shade. We just do. We love them. I think, Hugh, I really love your point that it's really about where your skill sets lie. And if you see that bridge, if you're doing product management, and you're like, I think I could really get behind this and provide a lot of value by doing product ops. It'd be really cool to switch in between. And I've had conversations with other people where they feel like it's a step down, and I'm like, it's not a step down. It's a step in a different direction.
It is. So for those of you who are hiring, product operations people are basically product leaders or equivalent to product managers. Please consider that when you're pricing.
Yeah, the pricing's not there. Straight up, right, guys? Like, I'm not wrong. Like in terms of salary. Sometimes. Okay.
From what I've heard, like the jobs are also like few and far between for a dedicated product ops role. Like there are flavors of it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Just depends. Okay, so I want to make sure we hit our last theme before we wrap up for the night and go to questions. Okay, so you defined it for me. You told me what value it adds. You convinced me, yes, I want to do it. I started it. When am I ready to scale it? What does that look like?
Yeah, okay. So you should always be ready to scale it, assuming that you understand the space that you occupy, where the business is now and where the business wants to be. You need to be in lockstep from a corporate perspective and a product portfolio perspective. There's no excuse not to be in this type of role. And so understanding where the business is going to help you map out where you need to scale if capacity presents itself. So I think like my suggestion would be when you're ready to scale, expect that no help is coming, okay? But plan for any scenario when it comes to adding capacity. I think if you expect that no help is coming, you'll get very creative in terms of how you build things, how you manage your energy and your time. There will be less one-on-one interactions and more one-to-many or many-to-one interactions. And I think that's a good headspace to occupy. And then if headcount does present itself and the business does want to invest in it, then great, you're already prepared and you know exactly where to devote that capacity.
So I'm speaking and looking at the questions already, and the top voted question is going to be a follow-up from this one. Is there a stage during a company's growth when it's right to advocate for product ops? Or does it depend?
I can take this one. So the way I do product ops, and again, like very, very dependent on your flavor of product ops. So the way I do product ops, I don't think it makes sense below 100 employees or below 50 employees and you suddenly got a lot of money and you're about to scale. So it's about building for scale is what makes sense to me in the way I define product ops. Because anything smaller than that, like you might be able to figure it out. You might not have the capacity to build more than that.
What do you think, Hugh? You lead in.
Yeah. I think going back to like shared definitions, like what is your definition of scaling it, or like advocacy for product ops?
Yeah.
And so advocating for a dedicated function, for sure.
Yeah.
Like you want to make sure that you're being fiscally responsible with the organization's money. But advocating for the mindset that you need to be in for that function, I think is everybody's responsibility. And I don't think it's just product or engineering, or it's literally everybody. How well do we all work together? So you should be advocating for it at all times. And it doesn't have to take a formal structure within the org.
Totally. I'd love to debate this more because I feel like at 100 people, I would debate hiring your first PM, but that's me. Before we wrap up, I want to ask one final question. We get to some of the questions that have come up on Slido. Where do you send people to learn more about product ops? Maybe this sparks some curiosity for folks in the audience tonight. Where do we send them?
I think it's really more learning about context. So in order to do product ops, you really need to understand the context in which product management exists. And that means understanding literally everything. So to start talking to the people in your company. Like, do you know what sales is? Do you?
Nope.
Like, what even is a salesperson? You know, like all of those questions you start asking and you dig into it and you understand how they work, right? Once you understand how they work, you can say, oh, this is how we work with them. And it's really a matter of asking the question, how do we want to work together? So if you're asking that question with the other person in the room, you're doing product ops.
Cool. Hugh, where would you send people?
Well, I just want to like +1 to that note, because it's definitely an activity of like constant like learning all aspects of the business. I think in that same vein, general response, but like LinkedIn's a really good resource. And so reaching out to product leaders, product ops leaders, and just reaching out like intentionally to say, hey, this is something that I'm really interested in. I'd love to pick your brain. Let's have a virtual coffee. That's been really helpful for me. And in a sense of like exploring what does good look like in different organizations. A couple of resources that have been helpful, like we mentioned the Melissa Perry book.
Yeah.
It's such an excellent book, not because it's like absolutely mind-blowing, but super actionable in that like most business books are like, you're lucky if you get like 25 pages of like really actionable advice.
Yeah.
This was a very actionable book. I think it's great. There's a lot of online resources that they provide as well, like the baseline capabilities map. Super helpful if you're interested in like just building that out. The Product HQ Slack community as well is a
Product
dedicated.
Ops HQ.
Yeah, Product Ops HQ. Thank you. Is an excellent community as well. That's kind of how I was introduced to all of this originally too. So those are really good ones, I think.
Yeah. So the people to follow are Graham Reed out of New York, not New York, London, who's doing a lot of writing on that. Antonia Landy is another person. I write less about product ops and more about context. So I have a blog called Context Soup. There is, who else? Jenny, I don't know how to say her last name, but it's Wanger. She writes a lot of really great content on product ops that's like quite practical. So I think those are my go-to people, but there's a lot more people that I'm sorry if I forgot you.
Love it.
I think May's become one of my go-to people
Yeah.
in the last month as well.
Yeah. If you don't get a chance, grab some of May's time. And she's always here. And Product Yo. Shout out. Like, there's no competition in the community of product get-togethers. There is only more and getting more help. Thank
Sign
you
up
both.
on productio.org.
Yes, productio.org. Thank you both for sharing your expertise this evening. We will throw it to some questions. So I've got Slido in my hand, but is there a question in the audience? I will run to you. Yes, I see a hand. I'm going to run to you. Excuse me, I'm gonna run past the camera. It's my friend, go ahead.
Hey, so actually, like, I know there's not many product ops, but I was hired as a product ops intern at my company at Geotab. So yeah, so I'm a bit familiar with the area. I just bring a mic open, is there if there's anyone here that's actually hiring interns for product operations, just hit me up. Shout out to you guys. I've actually kind of expanded our team at Geotab. We have around 45 product managers, right? So I get buy-in from executives for all of them. So it's really I'd say it's a really cross-functional team, and it's the value of it is actually pretty high in the sense that you really need to kind of help your product managers really achieve the alignment, right, and achieve that goal of getting everyone together to reach a roadmap of the company, right? So it is a really big function.
Thank you, my friend. I'm gonna riff off, Hugh, go ahead.
No, it's just shout out the self-promotion there. Way to go,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Grab the mic.
Oh, it's a rough market out
I
there.
love it. I love it.
Promotions
Everybody
all
talking.
up.
So Geotab, an interesting note about Geotab is actually a hardware company with software components.
Yeah.
So I actually know a person who runs product ops at Geotab. But
So you know
it's
the
an interesting, it's a very interesting scenario how product ops changes if you are just a software company, if you're a B2B versus B2C versus B2B2C.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of different forms, and this is why there's no framework. It's not like you're implementing a framework. It's you're taking a look at what your company is and you say, how do we do product management better here? And it's going to change depending on your product, your market, and your organization.
I'm still going to try and make frameworks that work for everything. For sure.
No.
Oh, okay. So based on just those two responses just now, the next most voted question was, based on the discussion today, did me and Hugh think they are doing the same thing? Why or why not?
Yes, we are doing the same thing. It's at different scales. So I usually do 0 to 1. So I bring in product ops and I set it up.
Yeah.
I haven't actually done the scaling bit because for me, it just hasn't materialized yet. But I feel like it is very much we are spiritually aligned. We got on the call and we were just riffing off of each other the entire time. And it's really about that spiritual alignment, right?
So I love that. So we did have a call a month ago or so, and there was we didn't talk about this, but there's a healthy level of friction that needs to exist for this work to be both challenging and rewarding. And that's what I felt when we were talking. We didn't agree on everything that we were talking about, but we went over by 45 minutes on that call. So do we do the same thing? Yeah, I think fundamentally we do the same thing because we believe in the same type of outcomes at different scales. And we have maybe slightly different philosophies. But again, I think it goes back to you fundamentally believe that there is opportunity here to create better progress through measurability or visibility.
Yeah, that's I think that's a good point, and I think we can all relate to that for those in the room who are product managers. We constantly fight about the definition of how we do our work and how we add value. So speaking of adding value, our next most voted question from Anonymous asks us, how do you measure success or return on investment of product ops?
I would love to hear your answer to this.
Up to one go.
It depends.
It
So for me, product ops enables the success of product management, right? So it's really hard to measure what product ops is unless if you're measuring it for me specifically, in short-term projects, because that's what I end up doing in a place where you're trying to not scale up, but you're trying to start up because it's one thing at a time. But if you're starting to do more things at scale, gradual improvements, if you're looking more in the realm of continuous improvement, less big bang, we need to fix everything about how we work together, then that changes.
Yeah.
So for me, if you look at it from an OKR framework, I prefer to take on shorter term objectives But I'm sure like longer term it would look differently.
So I look at success in a couple different ways, and I try and use repeat frameworks if I can. And so people, process, technology. Do we have a measurably better tool that requires less time in tool to get what we need out of it? Do we have measurably better processes, i.e. like quarterly product reviews are more effective, they are better communication tools? And on the people side, are the people talking about what we're doing? Are they advocating for us? So you talked about sort of like a train the trainer model, like build up the advocacy within the product management organization. I feel like if you can do that at the people level, half the battle is kind of won for you, because now your very clear narrative is being shared within product management or the org, and they're doing a lot of that sales for you.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, Murray, thank you. Andrew, do we have time for one more question?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'm gonna ignore the question about my hair, which we talked about it. In what scenarios do you think product ops adds noise? I like this spicy question. Thank you, Matthew. So there's a second part to it. Apart from small orgs, when should we not be asking if we need ops help?
Do you mind if I? Okay. Because I've been guilty of this, I feel comfortable answering it. Like, when can product ops add noise? When you don't have a super clear set of objectives, or when you're trying to satisfy too many stakeholders. So especially if you're setting up a new function of product ops within your organization, you want to create as much value as you can, as fast as you can. That makes sense, right? So you're going to engage with as many stakeholders as you can. And chances are you'll overcommit, and you'll have too much work on your plate, and you'll be engaging with a whole bunch of people trying to wrangle a whole bunch of data, and it can create more noise than signal. And so, yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that, trying to stand it up and make it as valuable as possible. And it's okay to be, like I said, ruthlessly prioritizing the work that you're doing. And as long as you were talking about key stakeholder buy-in, stakeholder support, that's critically important. Making sure that the stakeholders that are there supporting you, the ones that have your back, like, they're the ones that you're managing the outcomes for as a priority, and gracefully putting everything else in the backlog until you can get to it.
So there's a couple of things that I think people should be aware of, which is you get what you hire for, right? So if you take a look at any product ops job posting, half the time it's going to be for a data analyst. Half the time, not half the time, but like a certain percentage of the time. There's a part of the time where they're looking for an administrator, and then there's sometimes they're talking about product ops like we talked about it here. So I think it's worthwhile taking a look at who they hired, because like, yeah, if you hire an admin, they're gonna do admin work. That's the expectation, right? If you hire someone to change your company and all of a sudden you don't want any change, you're gonna get someone who's gonna bother you because they're changing things you don't want them to. So it's more just like when I go into a company, like I look for, do the leaders want to change? Because I bring change, like that's what I do. But like, you need to have that full leadership alignment that says, yes, this is necessary because how we work isn't working. And we want to do this better, and we want to be more effective, and we want to get to growth sooner, whatever that means, right? Like, so I think it's more just like, do you understand the purpose of what you're trying to do? Where are you trying to get to? And having that alignment is what turns it into like being successful versus noise.
Awesome. What a good note to end on, like defending the value that product ops has. And I feel like you really, both of you have conveyed that from your respective careers and experiences tonight. Hugh has given us two mantras, I feel like we're walking away with: people, process, technology, and time to insights. What was my friend? What was it?
Reducing the time to insight.
Reducing the time to insights. May, what would you say is the mantra? What's your soundbite for product ops for all of us to walk away with?
This is a partnership. This is a partnership between product ops and product management, but the goal is to scale and grow product management. It has actually nothing to do with product ops. Product Ops is here to help you do your jobs. That is our function, to make your jobs more effective, to get the things out of your way so we can do great product management.
Amen. And that's the end of our panel for tonight. Thank you everyone who's online. Thank you everyone in person for being here on Green Night.
And I've just got a few announcements. So yeah, one big round of applause for all the speakers, Stacey, May, Hugh. They're really wonderful. Thank you so much. You know, feedback is a big part of product ops, I'm assuming. And we really need your feedback. We're looking for, this is Slido questions, and that is not feedback either. Well, there you go. Feedback. So QR code, please let us know what you think about the event. If you have any suggestions for future events, if you have suggestions for future speakers, we're looking for all of this kind of stuff. On the horizon, so next month we have a very, very exciting event. I'm very excited for this personally. So this is it's going to be a double feature. And what a double feature is two back-to-back keynotes by two really amazing speakers, all around product pricing and monetization. So the first one will be a sort of a broad overview of what's happening in SaaS pricing in 2024 by John Kotowski. And he's a really impressive and really amazing thinker in this field. And then we have a little bit more tactical talk by Scott Miller about, essentially it's a framework of pricing and offer design for the digital era. So it's a bit of a mix, like both high level and tactical, and we're going to be doing it at Intuit. So it's going to be our first event at Intuit. So, and given that we have a theme of pricing and monetization, we're going to do a 24-hour sale on tickets. So if you think you want to go to it, for the next 24 hours, if you go to that link on that QR code and use the code pricing, you'll get 20% off that. And we'll also send this out on the Slack channel and probably via email as well. So TikTok, 24 hours are coming. And hopefully we'll see you next month at Intuit. There we go. So we've got the room for the next hour in a little bit. So please grab a drink. There's wine right over there. There's food. Say hello to everyone. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much for Stacey, May, and Hugh.
Thank you.